Hi, I'm Richmond Wong. I'm a postdoc at the UC Berkeley Center for Long-Term Cybersecurity. In this paper, I show how design fiction can be used to analyze and reflect on ethnographic data. I call this usage design fiction memos. This paper presents a case study using design fiction memos in a project studying user experience professionals who try to engage with values and ethical issues in their work. In qualitative analysis, memo writing can help provide a step between collecting data and formal written analysis, helping the researcher reflect on and make sense of large amounts of qualitative data. Memos allow a researcher to start closely in their data, abstract away from it, then reflexively come back to their data. This paper deploys design fiction in a similar way. Design fiction is a practice of creating fictional worlds by depicting conceptual artifacts that help ask questions about configurations of that world, helping a designer think about issues such as power relationships and social values. While design fictions often come from the imagination of its designers and creators, this paper suggests creating design fictions stemming from qualitative empirical data. With design fiction memos, researchers start close to their qualitative data, then move away from it by creating and exploring a fictional world inspired by that data. Then the researcher can come back to their data with new insights. Design fiction memos are meant to be created throughout the data collection and analysis process as a thinking tool, rather than being the final design outcome of a qualitative research process. I present an example using design fiction memos in a project studying the work practices of user experience professionals who advocate for addressing values and ethical issues from their positions within their companies, sometimes successfully and sometimes not. I interviewed 12 UX professionals, predominantly working at large technology companies in the US, and conducted observations at UX meetup events. While analyzing the data, I created design fiction memos that depict corporate practices. These include fictional corporate emails, interfaces of workplace software, and corporate websites and posters. And I'll briefly discuss one, the ethics work tracker. This imagined interface allows someone to track work tasks related to values and ethics. Each square represents a day, and darker squares indicate more contributions to values and ethics work. So here are Jen's details for one day, where she tracks things like attending a product meeting where she presented a set of user personas around accessibility, but then she also had to explain accessibility laws to coworkers, and she notes that she got interrupted 3 times by a coworker. This design fiction helps reflect on the everyday work of surfacing values and how this labor is often invisible and unrecognized. This design was inspired in part by a senior UX researcher who talked about creating an ethical debt tracker using bug tracking software. Tracking these issues as bugs makes values and ethical issues visible to coworkers, but perhaps as problems to be solved technically. Another senior designer discussed their uncompensated volunteer labor in furthering their company's diversity and inclusion initiatives. And they expressed frustration at having to repeatedly prompt team members to consider how product changes might create harms for end user. This participant said, quote, "Every single conversation is like this, where it's, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. And like, I have been telling you," end quote. The design fiction extends these accounts by creating an interface to make this type of labor more visible. The grid in the design fiction adapts a visualization used by GitHub to track a person's technical contributions to a project. And applying that model of tracking to values advocacy work begins to raise questions about the politics and implications of making values work visible in this particular way, which can be problematic in its own right. This design helped me reflect on aspects of invisible, emotional, and gendered labor in values and ethics advocacy. Across 4 memos, the paper goes into more depth discussing how the work of values and ethics advocacy by UX professionals is not only technical, but deeply social and affected by organizational power dynamics. The paper provides several reflections on design fiction memoing, how they compare to written memos, and some guidance on creating and evaluating them. Design fiction memos can help researchers analyze and reflect on qualitative data in new ways, enable the exploration of a complex and rich set of issues in a way that resists simple design solutions, and provides a new way to circulate ethnographic accounts and stories. Thank you to many colleagues, the reviewers, and the participants for sharing their stories.